abano abano ramakano abano hakon jamanakinra senem para mayon shamankin medicina maketai toniram. Medicina
Hello, everybody. So I am Mary Monster, and I'm here today with Don Roberto, my friend, my
Hi
brother.
everyone. Hi everyone. Thanks for having me.
Roberto, yeah, he's a Shipibo Maestro of ayahuasca of many years. I don't remember how many. Robert, would you like to give a small background of your serving history, your kind of journey, um, in context of this talk that we're going to be having today, which we've titled "Singing the Metaverse," with a kind of a parallel
Sure.
moving between the metaverse and the multiverse,
and
and
and this
shamanic
verse.
journeying. Yeah, this song that we are living. Yes, yeah, okay.
Sure. My background is I'm trained as a medical anthropologist, and a medical anthropologist looks at belief systems around healing and wellness and sickness. And my training originally was in Africa, and I did field work in Kilimanjaro. And when I finished my academic training, then I was based in Taiwan in the Far East. And I was essentially just busy doing me, taking photographs because I'm also a photographer and teaching. And then one day, somebody invited me to be their friend on Facebook. And so I looked at their interests, and it just so happened that they liked shamanism and ayahuasca. And the thing is, I'd read about ayahuasca 20 years before that, and it struck me as very powerful because in that story, the person who took it had all these incredible experiences, and then in the morning, the shaman recounted everything that he had seen, everybody he met, and the conversations that he had had to a T perfectly. But the thing that stuck with me is that this shaman was blind.
Hmm.
So I came. My takeaway was like, wow, this really is powerful. This really has something that's objectively real. If you have this shared reality between a blind shaman and a participant, that is, it's actually what happened, and it left a deep impression upon me. But I didn't really feel like I wanted this experience, or also it was too far away. Peru, it was too expensive to get there, too many bugs, too hot, all kinds of reasons. So I remembered the story and I parked it in my memory. And suddenly, 20 years later, there's this guy knocking on my Facebook door, so to speak, wanting to be my friend. So I wrote to him, I said, hey, I know what ayahuasca is. It was such an unusual thing. I hadn't heard it in 20 years. And say, what's the story with this? Well, you're in Taiwan, why do you mention this as an interest? And he said, well, actually, we have similar plants in Taiwan that can do the same thing.
Hmm.
So I was blown away by that. And then essentially what happened is in the very same week, I had a lunch with a friend of mine who was doing studies in business studies. So he was a really straight guy, and we had a nice conversation and all that. But just before I left, he said, I've got a gift for you. And he motioned underneath the table and pulled out this vial of brown liquid. And I looked at it and I said to him, I don't drink coffee. I thought it was just coffee that he had brought along. But he said, no, this is ayahuasca. So I was floored essentially because it's twice in the same week, and it's been 20 years since I heard this word mentioned.
Wow.
And here are two different people. And I said to him, "Do you know this person?" Because they were both in the same city, and he swore up and down that he didn't.
Hmm.
So I was like, "Oh, okay. So I hear this is kind of really special. You don't get this kind of connection." So the first guy got back to me and he said, "Oh, we're going to be doing ceremony in 6 weeks in Chinese New Year. Do you want to come along?" And it was a no-brainer, really. It was like, I'd be stupid not to. So
Hmm.
that's what happened. That was the actual connection. I wasn't searching for it. And that's the thing with these plant spirit medicines, they come looking for you. I
Hmm.
found that's the case.
Hmm. Yeah, I can say the same for my journey. Yeah. So now and then from there, fast forwarding a few years.
Well, yeah, we can. I can just briefly fill you in the fast forward gap. So
Yeah.
essentially, I had a little bit of assistance. These people, I mean, it was the most incredible. My first experience was absolutely off the scale. It was a really a really wake up activation,
Mm.
awakening and activation session on a scale I'd never experienced anything like that. So of course, it piqued my interest. I mean, a few other people in the ceremony, nothing really happened. It was very mild, but I, it was next level for me. So it definitely got my attention. And then I did a little bit of solo journeying after some assistance. And then I got to a point when I realized that I needed to learn this in depth because it's a very powerful experience and a very, very powerful medicine.
Mm.
So that's, I went off to train with the Shipibo in the jungle. And I've been going back ever since 2012, basically.
Hmm. 2012. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. And
With the Shipibo, yeah, specifically,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I know a little bit of your story. You've been dieting plants and learning how to serve and serving all over the world.
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's a very slow process. I mean, like plant time is a very slow time. So developing connection, which is what the training is about, isn't necessarily that you're going to be given explicit instructions by the teachers or the shamans. It's really the plants making a connection energetically with you and becoming allies.
Mm.
So that's the foundation of medicine practice within
Mm.
plant spirit medicine. You need to develop relationships with those plants, and they need to teach you, and they need to be able to create energetic connections more than anything. So that when I open my mouth, or anybody who's trained opens that mouth, we carry the vibration of that medicine. We are the medicine. You know, not in
Mm.
any big-headed sense, but we carry that frequency, so that when we sing, it's us plus the frequency of rose or lily or whatever plant it is, or blue lotus, or there's all that medicine contained in the frequency.
Mm.
Go on.
Okay, so now we're moving into the singing part.
Mm.
What
Well,
is your experience when you are singing in ceremony? You're together with the medicine, and there's people there. What is your experience?
hmm. Well, it's a good question. In essence, what the songs do, these shamanic songs, which are called ikaros in officially, what the ikaros do is they're there to really ground the space, to really protect the space, to call the medicine in, and to do the healing work. Shipipo is well, the Shipipo culture is very much tied into ayahuasca, both as material culture, you see it in their designs, but also in their thinking. So the language is very powerful because it has this lineage and hundreds, if not thousands, of years of usage. So
Mm.
that when we sing these words, they have a power behind them. And so the Shipipo, as a singing language, is very specific. There's another tradition called the Mestizo tradition, which is um, singing in Spanish or singing in Spanish in Quechua, which is Incan language, but it's not so precise. Very often they're kind of name checking the plants or just saying heal, heal. But in Shipibo, the protocols are very much more precise in terms of like first we're going to open up connection, we're going to connect to this specific plant, we're going to strengthen that, and we're going to make we're going to add protection for the house and protection for the people, and then we're going to do this. So it's like
Mm.
engineering essentially. So it can be tailored when you're sitting in front of somebody and you really want to get under the hood, so to speak, of what it is that ails them. The languaging really helps, and often the plants that we have within us talk to us as we're singing, or they guide us, or they bring out certain melodies. So it's a collaborative effort, and it's a very precise effort. I like Shipibo because it's you can get into the fine detail. Let's
Mm.
put it that way.
So you've learned the language, and that's would you say that's an important part of it for doing the work that you're doing?
It's still an ongoing process. I'm still receiving language lessons, so to speak, but that go into even more detail. And the more precise I can be, the more intention can be really packaged
Mm.
into the song. Because the songs are. Oh, here's the thing as well. The ikaros are generated in the moment. They're extemporized. They're improvised, and so it's the moment itself that teaches, and the person in front of us teaches us what needs to be sung. So I'm not
Mm.
just singing, a chart, a song from the chart. that I've already memorized. It's something that is generated. So one needs a degree of competency in the language to be able to actually improvise in that language. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
more I've learned, the more I can be more precise, which is it's actually a pleasure for me to be able to exert that precision healing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's kind of like, I suppose, the Aboriginals refer to it as songline singing, where and the songs are songs that arise from the moment. They're not
Mm.
practiced, passed on songs. What's practiced and passed on is the language more than the songs themselves, and then being sensitive to the moment and to what's being called for, and the line that you're following or that's presenting itself.
And
Yeah.
talking about the moment as well, I could tell you this story. So there was a session, a ceremony I held in the UK, and there was a really big guy in the session. He was like um, Hell's Angel, basically, and
Mm.
he'd been through the mill, and he was a big lad. And so I got a dog barking in the distance.
Yeah, that's Pearl.
Okay, okay,
There's
all
someone at
right.
the gate.
Hmm. So what happened with him is actually I wasn't going to sing to him. I was going to basically. So part of the way we work with the medicine is we work with tobacco. So in order to activate the tobacco and the tobacco spirit for the work it's going to do, we sing to it. So we have like a roll up, and we actually sing tobacco in there. So I was singing, and this out of my mouth came this melody that was really ancient. I didn't recognize it like something I knew already, but when I heard it, I went, "Wow, this is really a higher dimensional, archaic song." And I was planning to play myself, blow the tobacco on to light it up and blow it on myself. And what happened was that he looked up, he goes, "That's amazing, that is." And I went, "Oh, this needs to be sung to you. I need to sing the Ikaro to you." Right.
Mm.
So I finished with the tobacco, and then I sang to him. And then, and again, this most amazing melody or Ikaro came out that I had no idea that I was going to sing.
Mm.
And he looked at me and goes, "Thank you. I now know what my mission is.
Mhm.
I've got the download." I was like, oh. So in a sense, I don't control everything. I don't know what everything is going to happen because I'm working in tandem with plant spirits who have a bigger overview. So I don't know necessarily how that's going to the Ikaro is going to land or what it's going to do. I can put intention uh, into what I'm going to sing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person receives it in that way.
Yeah.
So what was beautiful um, is very often that if I'm doing a healing Ikaro, specifically with that intention to release, then I will often, when I finish the singing, and then the tobacco smoke carries I've been singing to the tobacco as well as singing the Ikara, but the energetic of the song is in the tobacco, and
Mm.
boom, when they receive the tobacco and the vibration of the song, it kind of gets down to business, and like I can promise you within 10-15 minutes they're beginning to go to a deep process because the song is really reverberating at a deep level.
Mm. Yeah, it's really profound how the plants work together with us, this being part of nature thing. Right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing because there are certain people. So we're talking about singing, right? There are certain people that they've had one or two sessions and they get the ceremonies and they think, "Oh, I'm a good singer. I can do this, or I could learn these songs by heart." Or there are certain things you can listen to you on YouTube and you can learn them off.
Yeah.
But they don't carry that connection. That's the main thing. They're deluded if they think they're actually up to scratch. And
Mm.
it's a long path. It's a really long path to develop that. One
Yeah.
can't be in a hurry.
Especially if you're learning a language. Um, the
Oh my.
the yeah, sure. I mean, but I suppose that's the one side. The one side is learning the language, and the other side is having the sensitivity and willingness to allow synchronicity, to allow spontaneity, to allow the medicine to guide the moment, to guide that person's spirit or soul, I suppose, to guide the process and not put your own mind and your own ego, your own choice structures, like, or the past, not put the past in front of you, but just to meet what's in front of you with the song.
Mm.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll be honest with you that my initial learning of Shipibo was with a training organization that demanded that we memorize the songs,
Mm.
a certain set of songs, and then repeat or reproduce them in ceremony. So it was actually the cognitively hardest thing I've ever done, because if you're getting used to the medicine for the first time, you're in a really altered state where you can barely remember your own name, let alone complex set of verses and words. I mean, it was really hard, and you don't necessarily understand. And compounding this, the translations they gave us were off, were actually very much in error. So they were and I kind of knew that at the time, but I couldn't really get them to admit it. But eventually I just said, look, I'm a linguist by training, and I can see this is fantasy. What you're really, it's got no connection to reality, what the original says and what you think it says, because you can see there's no actual coherence, and you want us to memorize something. So the problem with that is that we got into our heads because we were so busy trying to memorize it. It was all up here rather than knowing the language at a different level so that it comes from the heart. So I've had to do a lot of unlearning and repatterning, but coming from feeling and emotion, so not just necessarily memorization.
That's the good stuff. That sounds like a very solid grounding way to start, actually, to meet what you don't want so that you know it right from the beginning. And then,
True,
yeah.
true,
Okay.
but it was an arduous path to unwind that, but it's all good. I mean, and then again, when I spent more time training with different people, I saw that's not how they actually work. They didn't have memorized ikaros. They created it from the ground of reality, the experience of reality that's in front of them. So I went, oh, okay, we need a different method. So I'm
Yeah.
getting there.
Hallelujah.
Getting
That's fantastic.
there.
So now coming back to that first question I asked you, or maybe it was the second question, what is your experience? Because I know for a lot of people, the primary, or a lot of us, the primary sensual experience is visual. So, what is your experience when you are singing in ceremony, when you're meeting with the moment, and from a visual point of view, because this is, for me, this is quite an interesting contemplation around the meeting between the kind of multiverse and the metaverse, and the shamanic journey state and the shamanic journey experience, Yeah.
It's a very good question, and I'll answer it like this. In my initial months of working with the medicine, primarily by myself, I was gifted with so many high dimensional experiences. I mean, real visions of landscapes and structures and levels, and it was really overwhelming in many ways. It was very, very much visual. But actually, there was one day when everything went dark, and I asked the medicine, "Where are the visuals?" And she turned around and basically said, "What? You want TV?" I went, "Oh." I was being schooled because you see, there's a lot of levels to this work, and visuals are there are definitely there, and there are definitely realities. But once you
Yeah.
get to a certain point, once you've seen them, you don't necessarily the teaching's been done. How to say?
That's really
And there's
fantastic. Yeah.
and there's another level where in the beginning, as the medicine starts to take effect, there's this entry into a higher dimensional space, and that's defined by visions or geometrics or shifting patterns, and one can get entranced by that. I mean, I remember at the beginning, I said, this is all, I felt into it, and I went, this is all very beautiful, but there's much more than this. This is the I felt it's like the lobby of the hotel, and I was being tested, like, is this kid going to be like, slack jawed and all these pretty colors? And I went, no, this is nice, but show me more. Show me what's really behind this. And
Hey.
so I warn people. I said, look, the visuals are okay. They're just a signpost to say that you've reached, you're going from this reality, this to another level of reality. So just treat them as the lobby, but don't get entranced by it. So there's that. So when I work these days, when I'm actually in a very different way of knowing, which is felt sense, kinesthetic. So it's the actual feeling of the space and the feeling I get from people that guides me through the experience. I'm not necessarily, I mean, it would be much harder work if, oh my goodness, trust me, sometimes when it goes fully visual
Mm.
and everything starts pixelating. And I remember in the jungle once, I went to the bathroom outside the Malacca, the ceremonial hut, and I couldn't find my way back because everything turned pixelated. I was like, bloody hell, where are the stairs? I can't find the bloody stairs to get back. So it can be a bit annoying when it goes really strong. So to be honest with you, a lot of times I'm actually quote unquote very straight. I mean, in the sense that I'm seeing 3D space as it
Mm.
is. But
Mm.
then if there is a need to go to see deeper than that, the medicine will reveal it. So I'm not having to cope with overwhelming visions of higher dimensional spaces because I'm actually got a different function there. I've done that, so I can be with
Mm.
people, and I'm actually feeling into what they need rather than chasing their visions or um, slack jawed at the beauty of whatever is presenting itself in the moment. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, and that's fantastic.
Hmm.
Thank you. It's
It's a different way. It's a different way of knowing.
yeah, yeah. It's landing some things nicely for me as well with the experience I'm having
Oh, really?
currently with the way that I see, because also the way that I see is shifting at the moment too. And it's a very
You got to
interesting
trust that. You see.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you got to trust them because we can get attached to our ways of seeing,
Mm.
but it's amazing how much I pick up and how much I know directly because it's not necessarily me as well. I'm being mentored by the plants who
Mm.
whisper, so to speak, or they give me knowings, and I just know, um, what I have to do.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes it's hard. I mean, I remember this one time. I sat in front of a young man. I think I told you this story, but I'll repeat it for the listeners. I sat in front of this young man, and the medicine said he hasn't fully incarnated in his body.
Mm.
You need to do a soul retrieval for him. And I was like, what? So I went into an altered state to go into soul retrieval mode, and I suddenly saw him as a multidimensional being, phasing in and out of dimensions with various appendages that appeared and disappeared, like lots like an octopus almost, but innumerable appendages.
Kind
And I
of
went,
like you look on the screen at the moment with the background where you stretch your hands out and they disappear and reappear.
that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
imagine there were lots of them, and then one becomes smaller, and one becomes, oh my. So normally when I do soul retrieval, I basically say to the younger part, the child, I say, give me a hand, and we'll go. And here it's like, bloody hell, which part do I grab? Because it's moving in and out, phasing in and out of dimensions. It's appearing, it's not appearing. It's like, oh my God, this is the tough one. So I decided my solution was to actually become equal and opposite, the container that was equal and opposite to this being. So that
Mm.
if it shifted, I shifted. If it grew an appendage, I became the space that allowed that appendage to grow. So in that way, I was able to contain that energetic part and bring it back into the body, right?
Mm. Mm.
And then actually, a reality check in the morning, I said, well, this is really weird. This is what had happened. And I was shown, and he said, it's really strange. I've never talked about myself in the first person. I've always referred to myself in the third person. John says this. John thinks this. I was like, bingo.
Mm.
That was proof to me that I wasn't kind of way off mark, but I was
Yeah.
being shown something real, and I had to trust that. So uh, I would say, Mary, that the key is absolutely trusting your intuition. The more you trust it, the more it gets stronger like a muscle.
Hmm. That's lovely.
You're good at that anyway, I know, but I mean, it's just there's levels, right?
I mean, we can be it's profound how much deeper trust can get though. It's like
Aha.
there's no bottom to
Mm-hmm.
the depth that trust asks us to go
Mm-hmm.
to. as we grow.
Hmm.
You know, that's
Hmm.
that's that's my experience.
Hmm. Yes,
Yeah,
but it's also good to get a reality check as well sometimes, because that does help, you know.
definitely.
Hmm.
So now, while you're singing, and you say you're in quite actually lucid space, you can see what's going on in the room mostly these days. There's not a lot of visual stuff going on because it's not necessary. You're more inside with the kinesthetic, the feeling state.
And the energetic of the space, I'm
Mm.
really bonded with the energetic. It's like I and the space are the one on the same. So yeah.
So how can you describe that? And so you're one with the space. First of all, how would you describe that to feel like? And then secondly, when you're singing, how does that change your experience? What do you notice? Can you think of some good stories to go with those?
I can. I'm just thinking, what's it like? Well, essentially, imagine you're at a party, essentially, and you just know what's going on in that space, in that party space. You know, let's say somebody's talking about you, and you shouldn't be able to hear them over the cocktail din, but somehow your ears pick up, and you know exactly what the feeling is behind the conversation.
Mm,
And that's what it's like sometimes. I'm in the space, and yet I can check into everybody and feel what's going on, or I can say, oh, that's. Well, let me give you an example. I'm just thinking that it's coming to me live. Then suddenly I feel, oh, there's a stagnancy in the space. There's like a lid on top of this the space that we created that needs to be moved. So I might decide to get the drum and actually to shatter that kind of stagnancy.
mm,
So because it's so hard to describe because it's a personal experience, but it's a felt sense.
mm,
It's a living energy basically that
mm,
I'm tuned into. Um, and even so, if somebody may be going through a tough process, but I'm being told, don't worry, they just need to cry, or and get it out. They're actually okay. Don't
mm,
panic. So but to an external person, if they weren't actually connected to that energy, they might panic, go, oh, they're really upset, and try and intervene. But I get the no, they're fine. Or I get the equally, I get the, oh, while you're singing to this person, in 5 minutes this person's going to need, the other person across the room is going to need help. So
mm,
and lo and behold, that's what happens.
mm,
So or it could be, don't do anything now. You need to just let this energy land in you and process something, and they're all good. Don't worry. You don't have to work, so to speak. You can
mm,
be just downtime for a few minutes, process this, and then you're good to go.
mm. Okay. So it's really all
Mm,
very, very feeling based. Like, is it almost like a little voice inside you that
definitely.
directs you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a voice that speaks without speaking. It's a knowing. So
Mm,
it's more, I'm guided by knowings,
mm, mm.
which is
Okay.
an extension of the intuitions. But it's this symbiosis I have with the plants, that they are ready to assist and guide me in different ways.
Have you ever met a plant that was not ready to assist?
That's a good question. But I mean, the thing is, I would say, hmm, I wouldn't have met a plant like that because I wouldn't have gone to a plant that I wasn't called to. So it's kind of chicken and egg thing. So,
Yeah.
for example, with Iboga, if I went to Iboga now, I don't think I'm quite ready for it, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Okay.
It's not calling me strong enough for
Yes.
me to present myself, and so it may not like that pushiness
Mm.
because I haven't respected it. Whereas Datura, you know, it called me for a long time, but I wasn't ready. I needed to say, look, I need to respect you, and I need to get really grounded in my medicine experience before I diet you.
Mm.
And so when I did diet Datura, it was actually a very very easy experience,
Mm.
which is not for
Mm.
some people, but it was easy
Mm.
for me.
Mm.
Some people go, oh, I want to do this. It sounds rad. It sounds amazing. And then they get their asses kicked
Yeah.
because they're not going in it for the right reason. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've
So,
had the same kind of journey, and I mean it's interesting because I know from my association with you and the Shipibo through you that there are certain plants that don't like each other very much
mm-hmm.
according to the lore. But
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of been asked to put some of those plants together in my own field, and then I've had to had conversations with the team of plants and say, look, guys, we are all part of nature here, and this is what I'm being told. So it must be the case, and we're sharing a planet. So let's just work together here. So
Did you get
it's
any feedback from the team or the plants?
I have. I've had. I mean, in fact, I mean, one particular. It wasn't a plant. It was when Kambo called me,
Hmm.
and it was after I had already dieted Noyaral, and Noyaral doesn't really like the way that the frogs are
Hmm.
treated.
Hmm.
But Kambo was calling me so strongly and just said, I've got a piece for you about singing. As a frog, I've got a piece for you about singing that you need to get. And I had this
Hmm.
long conversation with Noyaral in the bath. and she
As you
said
do.
to me, yeah, and she said to me, okay, that's fine, but you need to take it as an attunement, not as a treatment. And you just take it once and receive the downloads, and then after that, that's it. And it worked, and it was fantastic. There was no fighting. It
Oh,
was a
wow.
phenomenal, yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. But I really had to stand and say, look, I've got challenges. I don't like the way the frogs are treated either, but it's got medicine that it wants to give me, and I've got a job to do in my process of singing the
So
metaverse.
can I
Yeah,
ask you, so after you had your Cambo experience, did the calling dissipate or disappear?
absolutely 100%.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And that attunement that I was given lasted for about 3 hours, and it was 3 hours of the most beautiful downloads and realizations and like popping experiences, really lovely. I had to
Mm.
drive to the airport during the process. It was quite interesting, but all the way there and back, just this absolute opening of awareness into realms that really have been very beneficial to me as a singer. So, yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, those are traditional injunctions, and I haven't. I mean, I'm not meant. I've got the Noya Dieta as well, and I'm not meant to do the Cambo, and I'm not meant to do thorned cacti.
mm,
So I respected that. Even though actually, personally, I do like San Pedro. I think it's a lovely experience.
mm,
But I'm respecting the. I haven't got the calling like you have to go against the injunction. I'm
yeah,
respecting the injunction.
yeah, yeah.
So especially since I've had a high level transmission, I don't dare lose that.
Yes,
Just
yeah,
for
I'm
mhm.
protective, but I'm also like, come on, man, we're friends. You're not gonna just like abandon my friendship. We're really good friends. I'm not abandoning
Mm.
you. Yeah,
Mhm.
I have been wondering about peyote because
Mm.
the blue deer has been speaking to me, and the blue deer walks with the peyote people. Um, but it's not a very strong. It's just like there's a little wonder there, and I've been like,
Mhm.
I wonder. But yeah,
I'll tell you what's been coming up for me recently is actually Amanita muscaria.
aha,
Since a friend of mine has done has been microdosing and has found it very powerful in terms of the healing and the rewiring that's been going on for in her own nervous system is
hmm,
phenomenal.
hmm,
So had a lot of respect over it, done it well, and I was very impressed with the depth and
hmm,
the transmission and the love that being has. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm pretty interested in doing Amanita next.
hmm. Yeah. I haven't met that one yet. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
She is rising. She is rising in awareness. So to speak, trending in people's awareness. So it's interesting that how sometimes these plants suddenly start to crest in terms of public exposure.
yeah. We've got
Mm.
her as part of the primary team of plants that came in to assist in supporting the space of Elysios, the community, the what's it,
Mm.
ecosystem, the Elysios
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem. I can't remember which part um, she's holding. I want to look quickly. Yeah, it's going to take too long. Yeah, it's a profound thing. And now moving a little bit more into the position where I'm sitting now with Elysios, with this decentralized. I don't know if you've been able to look at any of that stuff yet. The website that I sent you.
So now you're sitting in that position.
Yeah, the with the plants, because this vision to create this ecosystem was very, very clearly guided by the plants, and the plants are helping to root different aspects of it. In fact, the one that's calling to come in next is tobacco. We're just not sure exactly where the tobacco is going to sit yet. And it's interesting because it's maybe one of the things with Iboga. Iboga doesn't like tobacco very much.
Really?
Yeah, I think possibly because of how much tobacco is misused in the world, and Iboga specifically, its main job is to break bad habits. I don't know, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. But tobacco is really wanting to come in. But it's a profound thought with this process of maestroing, of singing, together with the plants, together with the reality, working with the sound, with the voice, with the word of whatever language or combination of languages is being used. And now we're languaging into decentralized, a whole different, it is its own language to learn all over again. And with the purposes of co-creating a governance structure together with the plants that can be globally accessible and fluid, that allows people everywhere to be able to work together with the plants, together with currency, together with, all of the art, learning, teaching, all of these things. And the plants have very clearly guided us in this direction, which is so interesting and strange because it all sits inside technology and inside, the internet, and which has always seemed, for me, it's always seemed so not nature. So now we like, okay, so can we sing with this being? How does that land for you?
It's actually very interesting because the other day I saw a documentary of Morgan Freeman, and he's talking about networks and how there's a discussion that the the networks that are created through the internet are evolving, and the way that humans are connecting is speeding up, and it's there are more potent connections or nexuses and nexi, and it's almost as if we're co-evolving together with the internet. Now we're actually creating a new intelligence, and we're just nodes in that, because it's a global system, and we're just each and every one of us is just a connected node in that system. But if you pan out and look at the big picture, that's a huge brain that's emerging, of which we are this analog part of the digital system. But it's a new system. It's an analog digital system, computers and humans. But we're seeing something emerge that is, we don't know what its capacity is. It's still in the process of like the synapses. We're actually wiring the synapses. If you know what I mean? All these nerve systems are coming together around centralized nodes, and who knows what that's going to generate. It's a new way of a new level of consciousness, so to speak. So, how does one interface with a plant directed distributed system like that of consciousness? What's your idea on that?
That's fascinating. I mean, for me, the parallel is so close to the mycelium network, to the way that the mycelium network manages nature and speaks to almost all aspects of nature, speaks to each other, speaks to itself, and infuses itself into almost all aspects of nature, and then helps nature to get what it needs and to distribute the the nutrition and distribute the energy and distribute and carry signals and carry messages and all this kind of thing. And
Of which we were actually very ignorant of the what was it called, the Wildwood Web, I
mm,
think, or Wood Wide Web. I mean, we're very ignorant of how that works, and that's just plants talking to each other through the roots. But we're even more ignorant of how mycelium functions as a huge connector.
mm,
So maybe this partnership with the plants in terms of developing this technology is really trying to teach us the lessons that they already know.
mm,
So in a sense, the technology may, on a personal level, seem alien, like not natural, but in a sense, they've already got it sussed out, and some. So they're trying to teach us lessons for how we can bring forth a different world, a better world through utilizing some of this know-how.
mm.
Hmm.
No,
Does that
that
make
makes
sense?
sense. It does. Yeah, it really makes
Hmm.
sense. Hey, so then coming back again to the singing of the metaverse and singing of this process, and you know, how deeply asking you on a personal level, and I guess every single person has got their own choice, and it's just like dieting different plants. It would be a matter of calling when called to. How deeply do we engage as humans with voices that are co creative, which are as humans who are listening to nature, to the plant, listening as part of nature and singing as part of nature? How deeply do we assist this teach learning process with the internet technologies, with the emerging metaverse in the digital analog co creation process? Um, yeah.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, because that's, are you asking how much on a personal level do we engage with this emerging system, or
Well, what do you think it looks like? If you were
oof,
to, yeah, if you were to, for example, decide, okay, um, or if you were called by one of the plants to sing this digital analog language co-creation emerging song, with the people in ceremony, for example. I wonder what that looks like. What does it feel
oh,
like?
hang on. So hang on. Let me see if I understand you. So, what would it be like if I invoked that space within the ceremony space, the metaverse itself?
Yeah.
Oof.
Is it
Well,
like, yeah, yeah. What
go
does it
on.
feel like in you? Has it got an intelligence that is in some way similar to the plant kingdom, queendom?
Or is it different?
Or is
Are
it
there different?
entirely different?
I would say the emergent properties of such a system that transcends kingdoms like animal and plant kingdom,
Mm,
and technology derived realms would be different. Let me share this with you, that I have heard in ceremony a few people singing Icaros that have been of such a high level of invocation that they really do invoke higher dimensional spaces.
mm,
Whereas there's another level of Icaro singing where, I mean, one is propelled into those spaces. Let me put it this way: that not only do you hear that it sounds extremely weird, but
mm,
also one feels the presence of that dimension, that very very high dimension embodied in the hearing.
mm,
And there are lots of other, the majority of other Icaros are very quote unquote mundane, because yes, you are opening the channels, but you're definitely not being propelled into the highest realms,
mm,
because in a sense it almost sounds like an alien code when those particular carols are sung, because it's we're going to the very very highest, maybe 12th dimension, and
mm,
boom, you're in that, you're really pulled into that, which I don't necessarily do that. I keep a connection, but I don't necessarily bring the entire space to the 12th dimension.
mm,
But I know it can be done. So in that sense, if that makes sense, I know that I don't think it's going to be a question of cognitively thinking about it. I think it will be something that will be generated from lived experience, and it will be emerging as a system that is revealing itself in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes, that does. Yeah, it does. Does make sense. I've got
Because
one more question. Or what were you going to
mm,
say?
no, because I think it will present itself when it's ready as well. It's a living system that exists in potentiality as an archetype
Mm-hmm.
as well already. So when it's ready, it'll start, bleeding through to our reality and be available.
So once again, it comes to that place of sitting in the seat of trust
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
just listening and
You could
singing.
almost you could almost say it's like a pre-existing archetype
Mm.
that we just need to tap into,
Yeah.
perhaps, rather than imagining it to create it. It's already pre-existing. We have to download it.
I guess it kind of makes sense if this planetary consciousness that we're living together with here. Um, everything that is here can be and ultimately is encompassed by the planetary consciousness. So to think that anything is separate and is not part of nature might just be quite a
Our own
yeah
categories.
yeah
I mean, for example, one can, if you want to, you can download information from previous existing, but not physically existing anymore, mystery schools. It's there. It's still there.
mm, mm,
You can access it. So the other way around is also possible, going into the future to find future forms
mm,
and channeling them down. I'm
yeah
just talking off the top of my head here, but it's within within the realm of possibility from everything I've seen.
yes yeah no I agree with that yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so now my last question, and then we've gone a little bit over time, but I think that's fine. I might even cut this into two pieces and put one in the marketplace and put the other one on our new podcast channel that we're making. And
Cool.
yeah. My last question is I know that you also sometimes serve mushrooms.
Hmm.
And because of this parallel between the decentralized crypto reality and the mycelium network, I'm wondering just a same question again, what is it like to sing in the mushroom space, which is obviously different to the ayahuasca space?
Actually, I'm gonna burst your bubble on that one. For me particularly, I tell you
Mm,
what happens is that because I have such a strong connection to the realms via the Aya portal,
mm,
sometimes, actually quite often, when I take mushrooms, I go to the same Aya portals.
okay.
It launches me off that springboard into the same space. So I mean, because let's say the 12th dimension is a 12th dimension, regardless whether you access it via the mushroom dimension or you access it via the higher dimension. You'll still land up in the same place, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So
So,
the plant doesn't change the song or flavor your voice, spice it differently.
and also, but I mean, the mushrooms have their own teachings and their own energetics. um, and the mushroom spirit is it can do powerful healing, which
Mm,
is of a different caliber, different kind
mm,
to the which is why I often appeal to them to go there in a certain way because I can't quite get there. I've plateaued with the ayahuasca in a certain way,
mm,
so it's just to mix it up a little bit. Yeah.
mm, mm. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. This has been a really great conversation. I hope it's the first of a few.
Anytime.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you, Don Roberto,
You're
and many
welcome.
blessings on all of your travels that now that
Medicina
things are a bit more open
Things are a bit
on the
more open.
planet and you
maquetai
can fly more freely once
toniram.
again. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Medicina
Blessings on the
Hallelujah.
path and the way.
maquetai
Thank you.
maquetai toniram. Kano abano rama kano abano akonjama nakira senem para mayon mayon shaman kin. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Kano abano, rama kano abano, hakon shamanakinra, sinin para mayon shamankin. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Kano abano, rama kano abano, hakon shamanakira, senem para mayon shaman king. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Kano abano, rama kano abano, hakon shamanakinra, senem para mayon shamankin. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Kano abano, rama kano abano, hakon shamanakinra, sinem para mayon shamankin. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Medicina maketai, maketai toniram. Sinim para mayon shamankin. Hey.